Welcome to Q&A practice. Let's start out with a little warm-up, a little two voice, and we will start with the defense attorney. Ready? Here we go. Now calling your attention to the date of October 18, you were driving a car that was involved in a car accident. Isn't that correct? Yes, sir. At approximately what time of day or night did the accident happen? I think it was about 7 p.m. or thereabouts. All right. Was it dark? I think it was, sir. Were your headlights on? I think they were. I don't recall. Were the headlights on the other car that struck you? That I wouldn't know, sir. All right. Now, was the weather clear and dry? Yes. The streets were dry, weren't they? Yes, they were. Now, at the time of this accident, where were you going? I was going down valley. That's toward 5 Points, but I don't know whether it is south, east, or west. I meant what was going to be your destination. Where were you going? I was going home. I lived on 5th Avenue. You were going home? Yes, I was. And where were you coming from? Where was I coming from? Yes. Did you come from a movie, a store, or what? I was coming from a friend's house. And what friend was this? What was his name? Jim Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R. Was he in the car with you at the time of the accident? Yes, he was, sir. And for what reason had you been to his house? I was just visiting over at his house. And why was he coming back with you? I was going to drive him to work. On the night of the accident? Yes, sir. Right, now let's get to some four voice practice. And we will start with the plaintiff attorney. Ready? Is it owned by you personally or by the corporation? By the corporation. And when did you purchase the property? It was purchased in June of 1990. And you formed the corporation in what year? 1987. Who owned the property prior to 1990? Herbert Lloyd Miller. And when did he purchase it? On that, I'm just going to have to guess. I believe it was 1979, 1980. Let me just make a mention about the word guess. What we don't want you to do is actually guess. That is to say, if I were to ask you the length of my table in my kitchen, that would be an absolute guess. If I ask you the length of the table in this room, you could estimate by reasonably viewing it. So to the extent that based on your prior knowledge you can make a reasonable estimate, do so. If it's a guess, say so, and we'll move on. Approximately 1979. Between 1979 and 1987, were you on the property at all? Yes, I was. And when did you first start going on the property? 1979. Were there any structures on the property in 1979? No, there were not. When did any structures first get constructed on the property? 1982, and they were constructed by your father, him, and me and my brothers. Did you personally work on? Yes, I did. Remember to let me finish my question. She'll start kicking us here in a minute. So your father acquired the property in 1979, correct? That's correct. And then in 1982, some improvements were placed on the property by you, your brother, and your father. Is that correct? That's correct. And those improvements were for the purpose of operating your father's business. That's correct. And ultimately you operated your business on that property and in those structures. That's correct. In 1982, what structures were constructed? Office building, approximately 1,000 square feet, an overhead craneway system approximately 50 feet wide by 180 feet long, asphalt paving, block walls, street and road improvements. Equipment was added to the property. All the work was done on the site at that time. The building you referred to, is that still there today? Yes, it is. And has it been altered since it was originally constructed in 82? Just some remodeling has been done. By remodeling, it didn't increase the square footage. No, it did not. The overhead crane, is that still in the same place it was in 82? Yes, it is. The paving that was placed there in 1982, is that still there today? Yes, it is. Have you enlarged the paving area since 1982? We have added some concrete paving in the back shop area where you'll get crane ways. The original paving, was that asphalt or concrete? The original was asphalt. The addition, the concrete addition, when was that done? Approximately 4 years ago. So 01 or so, 01. Is it correct then to say that all of the asphalt which is on the property now was originally placed there in 1982, and the only addition is the concrete area which was added in 1990? As far as asphalt, I was asking only about the paving. That's correct. You indicated that in 1982 some block walls were placed on the property. That's correct. Would you describe where those block walls were placed in terms of north, south, east, west? Block walls were installed on the east side of the property, which would have been the front of the property, and on the northern side of the property. At the time you did the construction in 82, was Rancho Avenue paved? Yes, it was. And you mentioned there were some street improvements. Is that the curb and gutter? Curb and gutter and are part of the asphalt. It was only a 2-lane road, and now we have 2 lanes in front of our office. Were any block walls added after 1982? No. And do those block walls still exist today? Yes, they do. You mentioned, I'm sorry, we'll step back for a minute. There was some paving that was added out front of our office, where the asphalt used to run circular in front of our office, and it was dirt in front of the block wall. In between the block wall and the asphalt, we added concrete there for parking. When was that done? Approximately 6 years ago. You mentioned in 1982 that you added some equipment. What did you mean by equipment? Shears, bending equipment for shearing and bending reinforced steel for the fabrication of reinforcing steel, which consisted of racks and rollers and the other equipment that helps shear and bend steel, the fabrication of steel. Did you ever add any fencing to the south side of the property? No, I have not. How about the west side? On the west side, we put a gate in the back, the far back. When did you do that? About 5-6 years ago. Why did you put a gate there? They ran the other one over. Somebody ran it over? Well, some of our trucks ran it down. I take it there was a gate there before then? Yes. And had you put the gate there before then? Yes. When did you put the original gate in? The original gate was put in about 10 years ago. And why did you put the gate in originally? Why did we put it in? To keep people out of the back area of the shop. Was there ever either a fence or wall on the south side of the property? There's a partial rundown fence. It's not much of a fence. It's fallen over. Was that there in 82? I don't recall if it was there or not. I know we didn't put it in, so it must have been there. Let me just ask for clarification. Do you have a recollection specifically whether the fence was there in 82? It must have been, because we didn't put it there. Do you have a recollection of anybody putting in a fence after 82 along the south? No, I do not. Let me finish. I'm sorry. That's all right. Do you have a recollection of anybody putting a fence along the south border of your property since 1982? No, I do not. To your best recollection, it was there in 82. It must have been. A portion of that fence still stands today. Is that correct? Yes, it's half standing, it's fallen over and in disarray. In 1982, did the fence border the entire property? That is, was it standing on the entire border of the property? No, it was not. Do you have a specific recollection of that? Yes, I do. And is there a reason you have a recollection of that as opposed to what appears not to be a good recollection of whether or not it was there in 82? Yes, I do, because at the time we built the shop, the precast panels that we fabricated for the shop, we built on that property. We actually poured the concrete on that part of the property, and we took a drain and brought it over to the property on which they are now and stood them. So I know there were no fences there because we used that for fabrication of those precast panels. This was in 82. That's correct. I take it. What you're saying is that, let me go back so that I understand. Do you mean by present panels that you clear an area and you actually pour concrete on the ground, and after it is hard, then you tilt it up to be a wall? Is that a fair description? That's correct. In this case, they were actually picked up with a crane and sat where they were supposed to be. And did you go through the area in the fence that today does not have any fence on the south borderline? Do you understand my question? Yes and no. Let me re-ask it because it sounded muddled to me. Along your south borderline, there's a fence partially standing, correct? That's correct. And my question is, in that area where it is not up now, is that the area where you recall going across to pour and transport these precast walls? In the area we poured panels on, there's no fence now, and there's never been a fence in that area. And it's that area where it's gone today? Yes. The only place there's a partial fence is in the front where our asphalt meets our ends. The reason that fence is even there is to keep people from going out into the dirt and bringing dirt back onto the asphalt so we don't get the asphalt full of dirt. Do you know who put it up? My father did. He put it up prior to 82. No, it was in 82 at the time the asphalt was being laid. Let me go back because I'm confused. I want to make sure we're talking about the same south property line. That's correct. And a minute ago I asked you if there was a fence there in 1982, and you didn't have a specific recollection that there was, but you thought there was. There wasn't a fence in 82. There was a fence put up after 82, after the front completion of the property was put in, the asphalt and everything else, and that was to keep people off the dirt. So you're saying that the fence as it exists today on the south side of the property line was put up by your father after 82, late 82, 83, after the front area was finished, and that fence is, like I said, even at the time it wasn't a brand new fence. It was just something to keep people from getting in the dirt and driving back onto the asphalt. I don't know if he put it up after he poured the asphalt to keep people from driving out there and running over his new asphalt or not, but that could have been the reason he even put it up to begin with. To the best of your knowledge, that fence was actually put on the south property line of what's now your property. It was just put up in the general area out there. I'm not sure where it was put up. And that will conclude our Q&A practice.